All right, guys, so we are going to finish up our Serape blankets today. For the second step, you are going to need your finished Serape colored paper. You also need a blank white piece of paper, some scissors, a pencil, and a ruler. Okay, so for the first step, you are going to be tracing some lines on the back of your Serape paper. So you're going to use your ruler and you'll line it up all the way to the side, and then you're just going to trace a straight line down. So we're going to repeat this all the way across our paper. So every time you move your ruler, you want it to line up with your pencil line. And if you have one on the end that is a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner, that's okay. It doesn't really matter. So then after you have all of your lines drawn, you're going to cut on those lines with your scissors. All right, so then when I flip these over, I have all of these really pretty colored patterned papers I can use when I assemble my Serape. So now I'm going to get a blank white piece of paper, and I also have a bucket like this at the back of the room with a bunch of different solid color strips. And then you might see some extra pattern papers. These are from like previous classes who didn't use up all their strips. So if you want to use some of their extra pattern papers, you can use those too. So you're going to choose some colors of solid colors that you want to use in your Serape blanket. So you could start with maybe 5, and if you need to go back and get some more, then you could always go back and get more. So probably 5 is a good start. So then you're going to start assembling what you want your Serape to look like. So I'm just going to look at my patterned papers and alternate them with some solid colors. And you can either do like an exact pattern, so like pattern, solid, or you can change it up. All right, so I've got one that isn't gonna quite fit, so I'm gonna trim that at the end, and I'll show you that in a second. But this is gonna be what my design looks like. So then after you have a design laid out, then you can glue them on with your glue stick. When you're gluing with your glue stick, you want to make sure you are going all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. If you don't, you might have edges that curl up and then fall off later. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I just put like a little bit of glue in the middle, I have space on the top and the bottom. So when I go to put my strip on, then I've got paper that is not attached, and that could easily come off. So if you do that on accident, add some more glue and then stick it back down. Okay, so here's the one that is not going to fit completely. So I'm going to glue on as much of it as will fit. Like that. And then I can flip it to the back, and I can trim off this extra piece that is hanging off the edge. And if you have any pieces on the top or the bottom, like I've got some little pieces sticking up, you can do that as well. All right, so now I can use my extra strips, and I can also get some more solid colors. And I'm gonna make some more designs and patterns on top of the stripes I have. So remember, Serapes are very colorful and they have some really cool patterns on them. So we are going to make even more designs on top of these. So something that you can do is use your solid color strips, and you could turn them side to side, and then you could cut short little strips like this, and you could add them to a solid color to create another pattern on here. So that would be a fun idea. So I'm going to do that to this blue strip. And this one kind of flew over here, but I think that's actually kind of cool how it made a plus sign like that. So that might be a cool design you try on one of them. So you're going to use your glue stick again to add your smaller details on top. So you can also take the solid color strips or the pattern strips, and you can cut thinner strips like this. So I'm just kind of cutting close to the edge. And you can layer them this way to make it look like there is more than one stripe. So you could even do this twice if you want. So cut a skinny one, and then you could cut like a little bit thicker one behind it if you want it to look like there are 3 colors on that stripe. So that would look like this. So I would have my pink in the background, and then I would have blue, and then I would have orange on top. So that could be a really cool design that you did as well. And then one more cool option that you could do is you can cut a fancy kind of line through the center of a strip. So we'll do a pink one for this. So maybe I want to cut a zigzag line through the center of this stripe. And you could just freehand cut this if you want, or you could draw it first, and then you could cut on your pencil line. Okay, so then I have a strip that I have cut in half. Actually, we'll go this way. So then what you can do is you can space a little bit in the middle on top of a stripe like that. So then the purple shows through the center. Or you could do it reversed. So flip your paper like this. So the straight side is touching and the purple is on the outsides. All right, so there I have all of my designs finished. So I'm gonna flip it to the back one more time and just make sure that I have all of these little extra pieces trimmed off. Okay, so while I have it flipped on the back, I'm gonna write my name and my class code. And then I'm gonna smooth everything down. Sometimes when you use glue stick, it might have places that have more glue than others. So I'm gonna smooth it all out, just make sure everything is nice and flat and stuck to the front. All right, so when your serape is finished today, you can put it on the drying rack. And then if you have any strips like this that you did not cut, you can put them back in the strip bucket. And if you have pieces that you did cut, you can put them in recycling. All right, so when you're finished, you can clean up your table. All right, guys, so today we're gonna add some fringe to the sides of our serape blanket to make it look more like a real blanket. So fringe is when you have these kind of like tassels hanging off the edge. And I just added these with yarn. So I will show you how I tied those on really easily. So the first thing you need to do is use a hole punch and punch 5 or 6 holes on the short sides of your serape blanket. So I've already done one side. So when I go to this side, I want to try to make my holes in the same spots that I did on this side. So I'm gonna start with this one in the middle because that's the easiest one to do. I can kind of like drag my finger across And I know that my hole is gonna be right about here. So if it's not perfect, that's okay. And then before you punch a hole, you wanna make sure that it is not touching the edge of your paper. If this happens, it might just rip through the side of your paper, and we wanna make sure we have enough to tie the string on. So I'm putting my hole punch in a bit and then just punch a hole. So then I'm gonna repeat that for my other holes. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes, so that's perfect. If you have a little bit more or a little bit less, that's fine, but we want at least 5 or 6. So then I have all these strings cut for you. You need 1 for each one of your holes. So then for each one, you are going to take a piece of string and you are going to fold it in half like this. So I have 2 ends on one side, and then on this side I have a loop. You're gonna take the loop side and pinch it so that the loop closes. So there we go. So, so you can see like my loop is closed, so I have the pinched loop on this side, open ends on this side. The pinched side goes through a hole. So I'm gonna go through the back of my serape, push it through the hole. Okay, I don't want to pull all the way through. I just want to pull enough that I can see a loop. So I've got a loop coming through the top and then 2 strings coming out the bottom. So then this part can get kind of tricky, and I'll repeat this a couple times in case you miss it. So take your 2 strings and then I'm going to wrap them around the side of my paper and through this loop. So I've got my loop here and I can kind of hold it open. I'm going to put the 2 strings through the loop, grab onto them, and then I'm just going to gently pull until it's tight against the paper. So I don't want to pull so hard that it rips through, just a little bit until it tightens. Okay, so there is one of my tassels. Okay, so let me show you that a couple more times. So I've got my string, fold it in half, pinch the top, okay, then take that loop, thread it through a hole. Okay, so I've got loop coming through, 2 strings out the back. Take those 2 strings, thread them through the loop. Okay. And then I'm going to just gently pull those 2 strings until it's tight against my paper. Okay, so one more time, take your string, fold it in half, pinch the loop, thread the loop through the hole. So loop on the front, 2 strings on the back. Thread those 2 strings through the loop. Okay, and then gently pull. Okay, so then I'm going to repeat that for my last 3 holes. All right, so there is our finished serape with the tassels on the sides, or the fringe on the side. If you want to trim your strings a little bit so they're not so long, you could do that. I think I'm gonna trim mine a little bit, but you could also just leave yours long. So when you're trimming, you wanna try your best to trim them all the same length. So I'm just gonna go through. I'm doing this while my serape is laying flat on the table, so then I can really see how long to cut them. All right, so there is our finished serape.